Hello and welcome to Son of a Glitch. Join us as we explore some of the internet's craziest glitch stories. Story 1. Our previous upstairs neighbors moved out about 6 months ago, and the house remained vacant until around 2 months ago. That's when we first began sensing signs of someone new living above us. We had been close with the family who previously rented the space, even helping them move when they bought a new home. On their last day, I remember my mother asking them if the original owner had found new tenants, to which they replied, "Not yet, as far as we know." This detail stands out because not only had we never met the owner, but we also never saw a moving truck or anyone unloading furniture. No signs of new occupants whatsoever. Still, we figured we had missed it somehow. It's a big apartment complex. Things happen. Fast forward a month, and the presence of whoever was upstairs had already become a thorn in our side. We'd hear footsteps, sometimes running, sometimes walking, at all hours of the night. Furniture dragging, odd metallic clanging, something that sounded like a ball dribbling, a marble rolling across the floor, or a coin spinning before settling. Sometimes, it even sounded as though something small was being chased or scuttling, like a pet they weren't supposed to have. On one particularly tense night last week, things reached a boiling point. It was just past 11 p.m. when we heard the first knock. 3 taps, faint and deliberate, like someone tapping gently with an object rather than knocking with their knuckles. It was subtle enough that you wouldn't hear it unless the house was dead silent. Everyone was home, and no one expected guests. We paused, unsure, but when nothing followed, we chalked it up to a prank or misheard noise. An hour later, another set of knocks came, this time 5, each one more forceful, as if someone was trying to get our attention without outright slamming. That's when we realized the sound wasn't coming from the front door, but from the ceiling, directly above us. We froze, but considering how noisy the upstairs had been lately, we wrote it off as more of the same and resumed our night. My parents, however, were at their limit. My mother muttered that the next time there was a disturbance, she was going public on the building's WhatsApp group. At 12:30 a.m., 2 dull, heavy thuds rang out. These weren't knocks, they were weighty, almost like sacks of potatoes being dropped. I swear I heard something roll afterward, like a coin or maybe a marble. My mother exploded. She typed up a furious message and posted it to the group, calling out the upstairs unit for their inconsiderate late-night racket. Then she went to bed. What happened next was chilling. Her phone buzzed with messages. Multiple residents responded with confusion. One woman who lived on the same floor as our noisy neighbors replied, "Who are you talking about? No one has moved in upstairs. That unit's still empty." We were stunned. All 4 of us had been hearing the same sounds, the same disturbances, for over 2 months. There's no way we imagined it. My father lost it. He stormed upstairs and pounded on the door, over and over. No answer. We considered the idea of squatters, but without the owner in town, we had no way of confirming, and we weren't about to break in. Since that night, the noise has completely stopped. Silence. So now we wait. We're tense, listening for the next mishap, the next slip-up. It's been a week. Some people think we're exaggerating, or that we should have done something sooner if it bothered us that much. I don't have a good answer. Maybe we thought it was just bad neighbors. Maybe we're too tolerant. Or maybe it wasn't neighbors at all. Ghosts? A glitch in reality? A bleed from a parallel world? We don't know. But if it was a haunting, it was unlike any I've heard of. And if it was a glitch, well, I can't help but wonder what we were hearing, and why it suddenly stopped. And just between us, part of me wonders what would have happened if I'd gone upstairs that night. If I'd knocked back. If I'd waited and listened more closely. Story 2. Floss. Such a small, forgettable thing, until it isn't. Over the weekend, I ran out of dental floss. It's a petty annoyance, sure, but I hate that feeling of something lodged between your teeth, teasing you like a secret you can't quite reach. I searched everywhere, my bathroom, the hallway cabinet, even in my son's bathroom, but no dice. Fast forward to Tuesday night. My son and I make a trip to the store. While browsing, I spot a new type of floss, Tom's, a brand I'd never tried. I like my floss to be smooth, gliding between tight spaces like a lover's whisper, not biting like cheap string. I wasn't sure I'd like it, but I grabbed a box anyway. My son, curious, asked if he could get one too. Why not? I said yes. We came home, tossed the bags on the kitchen counter, and he unpacked everything while I headed upstairs. I unwrapped my floss, tossed the box into the bathroom trash, and gave it a try. It was a bit rougher than I liked, almost aggressive between the molars, but it did the job. Not my favorite, though. The next night, I went to floss again. I pulled open the drawer and paused, brow furrowing. There were two. Not just two floss containers, two of the exact same kind. Same packaging. Same transparent casing. Same damn label. I could see the one I'd used already was slightly smaller, the roll inside a bit thinner from use. But the second one? Brand new. Still pristine. I frowned. My first thought was that my son had brought his into my bathroom, which he sometimes does. But it seemed odd he'd leave it unopened and not say anything. Still, I brushed it off. Later that evening, while tidying the kitchen, I noticed something that made me stop cold. His floss was still on the counter, unopened. I slowly walked back up the stairs, heart lightly humming in my chest. I opened the same drawer. Two floss containers. Unmistakably. One used. One untouched. Now, I'm not prone to forgetting things, and I had only bought one for myself. My son's was never even opened. So where did this second one come from? Did I somehow somewhere buy two? Did I forget? Did one appear? Listen, I've read those weird Reddit threads and glitch in the Matrix stories before. I always thought people were exaggerating or just not paying close attention, especially when it came to something as mundane as floss. But here I am, standing in my bathroom, clutching two identical containers of a product I'd never bought before this week. I'm not saying I've slipped into another dimension. I'm not saying reality bent over backward just to deliver me a second roll of mediocre floss. But I am saying this, something doesn't add up. And the strangest part? I kind of liked it. There's something quietly erotic about the unknown, like brushing fingertips with a stranger in a dark hallway, knowing something just happened but not being able to explain it. This wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a person. It was a thread pulled loose in the fabric of my reality. And it left behind a little token. A second floss. Call it what you want. A glitch. A cosmic joke. Or maybe, the universe just wanted to slip something between my teeth. Story 3. It started with vodka, bass-heavy music, and a bar that smelled like secrets. I was 19 in Ukraine, technically Crimea, and it was my first time traveling alone. I found this little bar tucked away in a side street, the kind of place where the neon flickers just enough to make you feel like you're slipping between timelines. Inside, it was dim, warm, and pulsing with energy. That's where I met her. She was striking, dark eyes, a sly smile, and a voice like silk brushing over gravel. We didn't talk much. Language barriers have a way of speeding things up rather than slowing them down. Her fingers found mine somewhere between our second and third drink, and we ended up at her flat. It wasn't glamorous, but it was intimate. The kind of place you undress in slowly, because the air itself feels like foreplay. We hooked up, quick and messy at first, breathless, then again, slower, like we had time, even though we didn't. Then life moved on. I left. I didn't even catch her full name. 6 years later, I found myself back in the same city. Same bar. Same corner seat. The place hadn't changed, though I had. Older, maybe a little jaded, but still drawn to the same kind of heat. I met another woman that night, at least I thought I had. It wasn't until I was inside her apartment that I realized. It was the same flat. Same chipped tile in the kitchen. Same curtain with little faded sunflowers. Same scent of warm citrus and faint lavender. And it was her. The same girl. Only she didn't act like she recognized me. She spoke Ukrainian, I didn't. We moved around each other like strangers again. But her hands knew where to go. Her mouth tasted familiar. Her laugh, when I got her to make it, made something in my chest squeeze. We hooked up again, and it was just as intense, maybe more, because this time I felt the weight of memory pressing into every kiss, every slow grind of hips, every fingernail down my spine. I left before dawn, my head spinning. I never asked her name. She never asked mine. And she never let on that she knew me. But it wasn't just her. There was a guy named Nikolai too. The first time I met him at the bar, he introduced himself when he saw me struggling with the menu. The second time, 6 years later, I bumped into him on a random side street while looking for a pharmacy. He smiled like he'd seen me yesterday. This is the second largest city in Crimea. Over 330,000 people live there. What are the odds? I don't know which part of that memory unnerves me more. The fact that I met the same strangers in 2 separate trips, or the fact that one of them felt like a lover lost in time, and the other greeted me like a glitch in his day. Story 4. I have 4 kids. I know that logically. I've birthed them, raised them, kissed their scraped knees, and tucked them in more nights than I can count. But lately, I can't shake this eerie feeling. It started subtle. A slip of the mind, maybe. We'd be out shopping, and I'd instinctively head count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'd start panicking, looking around, heart pounding against my ribs like a warning bell. I'd feel the absence of someone I couldn't name. I'd look into the faces of my children, and even though they were all there, I'd feel like one was missing. It made me feel unzipped, like reality had split open, just enough to let something slip through. I tried to ignore it, chalked it up to mommy brain, maybe stress. But then came the money. My parents sent me a transfer, $500. They said it was $100 for each of the kids. I called them, confused, and reminded them I only have 4 children. They paused. Awkward silence. Then laughter. "Oh, silly us. We must be getting old," they said. "We really thought there were 5. I didn't laugh, because it wasn't just me anymore. That night, my daughter walked into the lounge room, glanced around, and said, "I know we're all here, but our family feels small." My son nodded. Said, "Yeah." I hadn't told anyone about my feelings. I didn't want to sound like I was losing it. I'm 40, not ancient. But now, even my kids were sensing it. Was there supposed to be a 5th? Did we lose someone without realizing it? Sometimes, when I lie awake next to my husband, I imagine another child, a little girl with soft curls or a boy with sleepy eyes and a mischievous smile, always just out of reach. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I feel her, or him, like a phantom limb of the heart, like someone I once loved deeply and forgot. It's a strange kind of grief, the kind you can't explain over wine with friends or in the softness of pillow talk. It slips between your thoughts like a lover you only remember in dreams. Was it a glitch? A child who existed in another version of my life? Did we merge timelines and one didn't make it through? I don't know. Story 5. This happened nearly 20 years ago, and yet the memory clings to me like a damp sheet in summer, unshakable, uncomfortable, and oddly intimate. I was 16, a self-avowed nerd, sprawled across my bed one late evening with the complete idiot's guide to learning Latin. Yes, really. It was one of those oversized orange and white books, textbook thick and full of promise. I was deep into a chapter about conjugations when my mom called me from the living room. I didn't want to lose my place, so I carefully tented the book on the floor next to my bed, spine up, pages still open, like a lover waiting for me to return. I glanced around for a bookmark, but there was nothing. She called again. I knelt, adjusted the book to just the right angle so the spine wouldn't suffer, and stepped out. It was a quick exchange. She was watching a movie with her boyfriend and asked if I'd seen the remote. I hadn't. I was gone for maybe 45 seconds. When I came back into my room, I closed the door and went straight for my book. But it was gone. Not under the bed. Not on the desk. Not on the chair. The spot on the floor where it had been was now just carpet, bare, flat, undisturbed. I stared, confused, like someone walking into a bedroom expecting their partner and finding only cold sheets. I froze. Not just mentally, but physically. My body locked up, like it was waiting for reality to catch up with itself. There were only 4 people in the house. My mom and her boyfriend were still on the couch. My brother was pacing in his room on the phone, his usual routine. No one could have taken the book without making a sound. And even if they had, why? I knelt again, sweeping my hands across the carpet like I was caressing for clues. It was warm. Empty. A ghost of where the book had been. I told myself I must have put it somewhere else. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I imagined tenting it. But I knew I hadn't. Still, I tore the room apart. Ripped off the blankets. Searched under the bed. Opened the closet, dug through drawers, even checked the bathroom. Nothing. I was sweating by the end, breathless, as if I'd been chasing a phantom that kept slipping through my fingers. After nearly an hour, I sat back, defeated. I turned my head one last time toward the floor where I'd left it. There it was. Just there. Tent open, same page, same crease. Waiting. My breath caught. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared. And the air in the room felt different, charged, like the static you feel before a thunderstorm, or the way a lover's fingertips hover just above your skin. I picked it up slowly, reverently, almost afraid it might disappear again. The page was still warm. Story 6. It's not every night that silence speaks louder than sound. I've lived in this building for a few years now. It's old, for units, creaky stairs, and paper-thin walls that carry every moan, every footstep, every whispered argument. I live alone, and I usually don't mind the quiet. It gives me space to think, to breathe, to feel. But lately the quiet has been filled. Most nights, after coming home from my late shift in the kitchen, usually around 1 a.m., I settle in with a drink, maybe a lukewarm shower to wash the grease from my skin, and I unwind. But as the clock creeps toward 3 o'clock or 4 a.m., I start to hear voices. Not clear ones, not words, just the low, rhythmic hum of conversation. Sometimes it sounds like a group of people chatting in the next room, soft laughter, a teasing murmur. Other times it's more intimate, like two people tangled up in something slow and private. Not quite erotic, but not entirely innocent either. Just close, familiar, and oddly comforting. Except no one's awake at that hour. Not in this building. I know my neighbors' schedules better than I know my own. The couple downstairs sleep like corpses. The man next door is a pharmacy tech who's out cold by 10. And upstairs? Vacant. Still the voices come. They never repeat. They never say anything I can quite make out. And yet, I recognize the cadence. It's like I've heard them before. Like echoes from a dream I never meant to forget. I tried recording them once. Nothing came through. Just static. But the moment I hit stop, there they were again, muffled soft just beyond the wall. I pressed my ear against it once, half-dressed, towel slipping from my hips, my skin still damp and humming from the heat of the bath. And for a second, I swear I felt the wall breathe back at me. Story 7. It was June 2007. Late night, 1 a.m. to be exact. I was at the hospital, waiting with a friend who'd gotten his fingers slammed in a taxi door. One of them was clearly broken, bent sideways like a bad decision. The emergency room was crowded, loud in that weird, fluorescent way. The vending machine was out of Coke, and I needed the caffeine to keep myself from dozing off. The receptionist told me there was another machine in the next building, always fully stocked, less traffic. So I followed her directions. 2 long, sterile corridors. My shoes echoed with every step. Then an enclosed bridge, glass on both sides, the city's orange haze fogging the view. I walked like I had a mission, even though all I really wanted was a cold drink and a moment to myself. At the far end of the bridge, I pushed through a set of double doors. And I was back at the emergency room entrance. Same flickering light. Same nurse at reception. Same man in a wheelchair mumbling to no one in particular. I stopped, frozen, heart thudding in confusion. I looked behind me. The door I'd just passed through was closed. I hadn't turned around. I hadn't retraced my steps. But here I was, exactly where I started, like the building had folded in on itself and spit me back out. I half expected someone to laugh, to say, "Gotcha." But no one noticed me. I walked back toward the receptionist, trying not to look unsettled. She didn't glance up. I didn't say anything. What could I say? Hey, your hospital loops like a bad fever dream. I didn't go looking for the vending machine after that. I sat back down next to my friend, who was nodding off, his hand wrapped in gauze. I stared at the tiled floor and tried to convince myself I'd just taken a wrong turn. That I was tired. That I imagined it. But here's the thing. I'd been walking for at least 6 minutes. I know what doubling back feels like. I know what déjà vu is. This was neither. It felt sexual in the strangest way. Not in the obvious sense, but in that deep bodily awareness kind of way. Like the building had touched me. Like I'd been somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. Like I had peeked behind the veil and seen something raw, vulnerable, and intimate. I never got my Coke, but I got something else. A loop. A glitch. And the distinct, lingering feeling that I'd been walked in on by the universe itself. Story 8. I was 20 when I met him. His name was John. At the time, I was taking night classes in Japanese at a local university in the UK. My nights were routine. Class would end around 9 p.m. I'd head to the train station, catch the infrequent night train, and go back to the quiet house I still shared with my parents. It was winter, freezing, snow clinging to the edges of the pavement like shivering lace. I'd just missed my usual train and was staring at the departure board, feeling annoyed and bored, when I heard a voice behind me. Long night. I turned. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed for autumn, not snow, just a baseball cap, a sweatshirt, and a windbreaker. American accent. Friendly smile. Eyes that made you feel like you'd been seen before. We started talking. I don't usually warm up to strangers, let alone men, that quickly. But with John it felt easy. Familiar. Like sliding into a favorite chair you didn't know you missed. He asked me for coffee. My train was coming soon, so I told him maybe another time. He smiled and asked for my number. I gave it to him. I remember walking away, feeling this deep sense of déjà vu, like I'd known him. Like I'd kissed him before. like I'd whispered secrets to him in the dark. We texted and agreed to meet the next day. He was waiting for me at the exact same spot, still wearing the same light clothes despite the biting cold. We didn't settle on a place immediately, just walked, talking about music, travel, and life. I noticed he rarely talked about himself. He was more interested in me. He knew things I hadn't told him, like that I had a sister. He laughed at my jokes before I finished them. It was like he already knew the punchlines. I didn't find it creepy, not right away. If anything, I found it electric. The way he looked at me wasn't possessive or aggressive. It was tender, yearning, like I was someone he missed. We ended up by the river, leaning over the bridge, the snow beginning to fall again. He turned to me and asked, "Can I give you a hug?" I nodded. It wasn't casual. He pulled me in close, held me like he was afraid I'd vanish. When we let go, his eyes were wet. And then he said it. "You're never going to believe me." We sat on a nearby bench, away from the streetlights, and he told me everything, calmly, like it wasn't the most insane thing I'd ever heard. He said he was from my near future, that we knew each other, that we had known each other very well. He'd traveled back in time just to see me again, but he hadn't expected to find me this young. "You look so different," he said softly. He wouldn't tell me how time travel worked. "It's not what you think," he said. "And this is just recreational. I just needed to see you one more time." My skin prickled. My breath came short. I wanted to laugh, to run, to scream. But I didn't, because deep down, some part of me believed him. It was the way he looked at me, like I was home. I stood to leave. He gently grasped my hand and whispered, "I'll see you again someday." And I ran. I cried as soon as I turned the corner. I told my sister and some friends later, and they joked about the hot time-traveling tourist. But I couldn't laugh. His number stopped working the next day. It was like he'd never existed. 10 years have passed. I'm in a happy relationship now. Stable. Loving. Story 9. Ever since I was 6 years old, I had this vivid, repeating dream. It always started the same. I was standing at the edge of a fairground, watching a little girl spinning slowly on a carousel. I was always an adult in the dream, never a child, just watching. The girl wore a romper, something straight out of the 80s, a faded pattern of stripes, and those cheap plastic sandals that made your feet sweat. She'd wave at me. Every time. Her smile was so wide, so impossibly bright, it almost hurt to look at. There was something about that grin that felt wrong, too perfect, too knowing. It wasn't just joy, it was as if she knew something I didn't. I had this dream for 2 decades. Sometimes I'd go a year without it, but it always came back. The strange thing was, I couldn't shake the feeling that the dream was trying to remind me of something, like it was digging its claws into some repressed memory I wasn't ready to see. Fast forward to 2018. I was at a fair with my boyfriend and our daughter. She was 2 years old at the time. He took her on the carousel while I stood by the rail, snapping photos and grinning like an idiot. I'd had a miscarriage the year before, and this child, my daughter, felt like a miracle. Watching her laugh, spinning around in that same kind of romper, those same sandals, my stomach twisted. I couldn't breathe. When we got home, I looked through the photos. That's when the hairs on my neck stood up. The photo I took, my daughter, waving at me from the carousel, her face frozen in that too wide smile. It was identical to the dream. Not similar, identical. The same angle. The same sunlight cutting through the trees behind her. The same damn grin. It wasn't me I had been dreaming of. It was her, my daughter. But here's the thing that keeps me up at night. If the dreams were glimpses of the future, who was I in them? Why did I always feel detached, like I wasn't really there? And why, in one version of the dream I still remember vividly, did the little girl stop waving, point behind me, and scream? I never turned around in the dream. I never saw what she saw. Story 10. It started like any other early morning shift. I'd been house sitting for a week, and I own a pet sitting business, so my routine was pretty straightforward. No need for makeup or a shower, just throw on clothes and hit the road. I left the house at exactly 5:43 a.m., still shaking off the fog of sleep, and turned down the first side street off the main road. I've taken this exact route dozens of times. I know every pothole, every mailbox, every weirdly positioned pine tree along the way. But something was wrong. The snow on the ground made the houses harder to recognize, sure, but I knew this road. There should have been homes lining both sides within a few hundred feet. Instead, I was surrounded by trees. Just endless, blackened trees. I glanced at the street sign again. It was the right name. But the road? It was wrong. Longer. Isolated. silent in a way that didn't just feel empty, it felt abandoned. Like even the birds didn't want to be there. After what felt like 5 minutes of driving, I realized I had gone way more than a mile. There should have been a T-junction, a left turn, a red barn. But nothing. Just trees and that awful thick quiet. Then I saw headlights behind me. A car. Finally. I pulled over, a little relieved, and grabbed my phone. Google Maps told me that I was, somehow, already on the next road I was supposed to turn onto. 2 miles past where I should have been. I stared at the map, trying to piece it together. I hadn't passed any intersections. I never turned. So how the hell did I get here? I kept driving. At the next landmark, a crooked mailbox shaped like a fish, I knew exactly where I was. Everything after that was normal. The roads, the houses, the clients. All exactly where they should be. But the side street that morning? It never ended. It just bled into something else, like the world had skipped a frame and I'd been dropped into the next scene with no transition. I arrived at my client's house 2 minutes late. Only 2 minutes. That tracks. No missing time. No blackouts. Just a massive gap in logic. I've tried to explain it away. Maybe I zoned out. Maybe I was just so tired I missed the turn and didn't realize. But I was looking for the landmark, watching for that red barn. I never saw it. Never passed it. And here's the part that makes my stomach knot. When I drove that same route the next day, the street was back to normal. Short. Houses exactly where they should be. The woods I'd driven through? They don't even exist on that stretch, just fences and ranch homes. So where was I that morning? Story 11. It was supposed to be a regular drive. My mom, my 3 siblings, and me piled into the family van during rush hour. The sun was setting, casting a copper glow across the highway. Then, just like that, the engine sputtered and died. Out of gas. On a packed interstate. We were stranded. This wasn't the age of smartphones. My mom's old brick cell died just minutes after we realized we were stuck. For kids, 1 mom, and hundreds of cars flying past us at 70 miles an hour. Horns. Yelling. Chaos. I remember my younger brother crying in the back seat, my mom trying to keep it together. Then he appeared. A cream-colored Lincoln pulled up behind us, somehow navigating the shoulder like it was made for him. The man who stepped out was tall, older, with deep brown skin, a white beard, and a blindingly clean white suit. He moved like he was gliding, too effortless, too controlled. I remember thinking, even as a kid, that he looked like he didn't belong. Not just to the situation, but to this world. He had a calmness that silenced the panic in the car. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just opened the back door of his car, pulled out a red gas can, his only possession in the vehicle, and said, "I'll be back in 10. And then he was gone, disappearing into rush hour traffic like it parted for him. Exactly 10 minutes later, he returned, crossing back through 4 lanes of highway, against traffic, without a single car hitting him. He filled our tank, smiled, and handed my mom a business card. "No need to thank me," he said. "Just pay it forward." I remember the card. It was embossed with gold trim, the name of a church, something like New Hope Baptist Assembly. My mom planned to send him a thank you note, maybe even a donation. But when she called the number, it was disconnected. She checked the address. No church existed there. No one in the area had ever heard of it. The card? Gone. She swore she left it on the kitchen counter. We never saw it again. So who was he? An angel? A ghost? A stranger with a death wish and a great sense of timing? Or something else?